Hey guys, this is UC from iTradePrice. Welcome to the weekly updates around the charts. So let us get started. Here is the SPY chart. Let us look at the weekly time frame first. So still overall in an uptrend, but you can see this. Let's look at the structure of the candle first. We have this bottom wick, which shows that there were sellers that took the price down and try to break down from this neckline that we broke out from a couple of weeks ago. However, the buyers stepped in and took the price back up above the neckline and closed it right there. Okay, so not a bearish overall week from the weekly chart perspective. And looking at the daily chart, we had this 50 SMA, which is this green line right here, provide a nice support to the chart, right? You can see this 343 areas acted as a sort of a pivot right here, because we have half of the days of the week that we traded majority above that. And then, you know, the dips below that level have been very shallow, and the price did not stay there for a long time, right? Only this Monday was like this, and then Tuesday and Wednesday, like the middle of the week, we just kind of stayed and hovered right around that level, never really dipped below that level. And then on Thursday we have this nice hammer bar, which showed that the buyers stepped in right at this 50 SMA, or this yellow, which is a 20 SMA, and then took the price back up. And on Friday we got a little bit of nice follow through with a nice looking bottom wick. So definitely SPY showed some strength towards the the later half of the week, which is always good. We're still a little bit here in the downtrend, so we need to get some price acceptance above this level. I would say above 346.9 to start seeing some active bulls come back into the market and see if we kind of get some price acceptance here in this area, and then for an eventual retest of this 354 towards the top end. Okay, but if we fail and if we kind of get some sort of a bearish trend bar, something like this, that won't be good for bulls, because that would mean that the downtrend has resumed here in the short term, and this 50 SMA, if the price comes there this time, I don't think it will hold. It will probably retest even the lower end of this price range, which can be right here around 338. Okay, so look for that as the ultimate support here in the short term. Okay, moving on to the Qs, the technology heavy index, and you can see this one actually is a little bit weaker than the SPYs, just by looking at the weekly bar here. It did kind of close not really towards the top end of its weekly range, but sort of in the middle. We have a little bit of bottom wick here, but it's not that long. So we have the equal body and the equal length of the bottom wick. So and it closed below the low of its previous week, so that shows some relative weakness in the technology sector. Okay, but there's this big week coming up with earnings from Apple, Amazon, and other technology names. So let's see what kind of impact does that do. But if you dig into the daily time frame, and we have it's a mix picture, right? We had this big bearish trend bar down on Monday, and then Tuesday, Wednesday we had this little bit of pause to the selling, but then we did see some selling towards the last half of the week, but then it kind of closed towards back in the middle, right? So that's where majority of the action was. It was totally range bound market this week, as we waited for the stimulus news, election news, and all those sort of things. But it could be where the market is waiting for the earnings to come out, and then they will decide one way or the other which way to break out. Okay, but the action is getting pretty tight. We are holding this 50 SMA, this green line right here, right? On any dip, buyers step in and take the price back up. So, but we need to see some follow through to the upside and eventually break this 287, which is this resistance here in Qs to kind of start feeling a little bit nice that, hey, bulls are coming back and the market is starting to get some buyers stepping in here as the price action has gotten weak. But if you just kind of take a step back a little bit, you can see this is where we broke out from, right? A few weeks ago, this was the neckline, right? We had this inverse head and shoulders, right? This was the breakout right here. We moved back up, and then now we came down and sort of testing the neckline again and holding that level nicely. So that's what makes this price where it is right now interesting, that we can either break down from here or buyers see this as an opportunity and go all the way up. Let's see which way the market decides. That's why with earnings and stimulus news this week is going to be very interesting to see which way we hold. Moving on to the Amazon chart. This is the weekly time frame, and again with the weekly time frame you can see still sort of upwards to sideways move, I would say, generally weekly trend wise. But if you look at individual candle structure, it is a little bit weak to sideways for the past couple of weeks now, but we have this nice little couple of bottom wicks here, right, which shows that buyers are getting interested at this price level. So something that you need to be aware of as you move into the next week. We are, however, below the short-term moving averages in this name, right? We are below the 50 SMA here and even the 20 SMA as well, right, which is this yellow line. But we have these bottom wicks here, which shows some buying pressure, but the buyers have not been able to get a follow through to the upside, right? We had this bottom wick right here, right here, right here, but we don't get any follow through to the upside. So that's what's been missing, right? Unless or until we start seeing some bullish trend bars, right? Like this, it is hard to kind of get aggressively bullish here. Yes, we have this hammer bar, but again, we need to see some more bullish trend bars, because that is the ultimate sign that buyers are not giving up, and there is no bottom wick, which means that because bottom wicks, yes, it means that there are buyers, that means there is strength, but at the same time it can also mean that we opened up here at the top, but then the sellers stepped in, right? So that means there are still some sellers in the market. Whereas for the bullish trend bar, that means that we opened low and we never even moved down. We just went all the way up throughout the day. So that is a strong show of buyers, right? We don't have that price action right now. Maybe we will get it once we see the earnings, which are coming up sometime in the middle part of this week. Okay, so just be aware of that. So here's the Apple weekly chart. This one is a relatively weaker looking chart in comparison to Amazon. As you can see, the weekly bar is a bearish trend bar versus the Amazon weekly bar, which was a non-trend bar, right? It had a long bottom wick, but this one is missing that. So that means that sellers are still in control. Yes, Apple is holding 113 level as a good support, as it never breached that level last week. So that is a good thing. But with earnings again this coming week, anything can happen, right? So on the daily view, we did break down from this channel that we were here kind of seeing. Let me kind of draw that here. So we had this nice channel going on, right? The price was moving up nicely, and this is where it broke down, right, with the bearish trend bar. So it did move below 50 SMA. It's still kind of closing below that price level, but you can also see we have had a series of lower highs. So unless or until Apple starts the move back up and get the first closure above 116.6 and then eventually 118, it's hard to be bullish on this name. So maybe the earnings that are coming out this week will spark that. We don't know, but on the bottom side, we have 113 as a good support level right here, followed by a double bottom here at 112.2. Okay, so look for those as support areas, and if you want to go long, look for the price to start getting some acceptance above 116 and 118 level, right? Because that will be that price above the 50 SMA as well, and also above some of these tops of these previous 2 days. Here's the weekly chart of BYND, still in an uptrend, but then we have these last 2 weeks of selling, and stock has managed to remain above 166 level, which is a weekly support. And as you can see, it was a resistance on the way up right here, and then it eventually broke out, gave us a nice move up, and then we are now testing that support level again. Moving into the daily time frame, I'll give us a little bit of better view here. You can see we have held that level of 166 twice now, right? I mean, yes, it did not touch that, but it kind of moved a little bit above that level. Reverses every day, right? Thursday and Fridays gave us a nice double bottom right here. So that means that this support area has some buyers showing up here. So now if we get a retest of that and it holds, that would be a nice way to get long. And we have this trend line that you can monitor that, hey, if we get a closure above that, that would be a nice sign that the buyers have managed to take the price back up, and it is going to start probably its earnings run, which is sometime in the middle of November, right? So that could be a good sign. But before you get aggressively long, you want to wait and see some sort of bullish trend bars in the daily time frame, right? That would mean that the buyers are holding this level, and this is good. So if we get on Monday a bullish bar right here, or some sort of a hammer or something, that would mean that this level is a good short-term support, and we can go long against that for some move to the upside, right? But if we gap up and open up strong, let's say around 178, whatever, this was the key level that it was defending on the move down, 181.1. So look for that level to be breached on the upside, and it holds. That is a good sign. That would mean that we are above the swings highs that it has made recently right here, like this. So that would be a first higher high, and probably a higher low as well if we get something like that. Okay, so look for that kind of a price action to go long. Netflix had its earnings out this past week, and we did see some selling. The overall momentum is still okay, and if you look at the bigger picture, right, I mean, it's still in an uptrend. Yes, we do have this. Actually, it doesn't look bad. Like, I mean, if you look at from the weekly perspective, right, we have this big flag that it's forming, right? So who knows that we get a bounce from here, maybe one more week of selling, and then eventually a bounce from this monthly support of 450, which could be very nice and bullish for this name over a long period of time. But we'll see when that happens. So let's dig into the daily time frame. Here's the gap down from the earnings this last week, and then we saw a couple of days of some follow-through moves to the down, and eventually on Friday we did see that the price level of 481 held nicely, right? So that is a good sign. Now we'll see if we get some chop here or some consolidation, and then slowly it starts to move back up or down. But from the trading perspective, I would like to get into a bull put spread for this name, as the premiums on the put side would still be nice because of the move down on earnings, but it won't give you a crazy move now, right? Because the earnings have passed, and so that means it will on a larger time frame it will remain range bound, so it's a good candidate for a credit spread, right? So look for that if you want to trade this name. Here is Boeing weekly chart. It's been sort of sideways for the past few weeks now. As you can see, we have not really gone anywhere from like 173 or 170 and then 159. So like maybe a $10–15 range this name has been trading in. With earnings coming up, this can be a catalyst for this one to break out or break down one way or the other. So if we move into the daily time frame for this name, it sold off here previously a few weeks ago, right? We have this big trend bar down, but then it never broke down. It never saw a follow through move to the downside from that bar, and it held these levels of 159.2 pretty nicely. And on the upside, we have this 173 as the sort of the main resistance, right? Every time we come here, we move down. Every time we come here, it just kind of sells off. But this recent sell-off this past week was sort of contained, and the price kind of is managing or displaying some sort of stability where it wants to kind of break out of this larger sort of downtrend line, which it always gets rejected from. So look for that move above 171, I would say, as that is sort of the first short-term resistance to overcome for this price. So if we move above that, look for the momentum and volume, and this can really nice break to the upside. So that can be a good sign. And the earnings are sometime, I believe, end of day on October 28th. So a lot of action coming up this week. Here's the Roku Weekly chart. Roku has been on a nice massive uptrend, good move to the upside from like this 163 level, and since the past 2 weeks it's just kind of consolidating here between 240 and 220 area, right? But just kind of getting dojis, and this is sort of neutral looking bars. And I think earnings are early November, so we still have a week or so left before the earnings. So looking at the daily time frame, it's holding this level. So I think it's just dip bias for now, because of the earnings it will kind of remain elevated. So we'll just look for the day's lows to hold and then kind of go long and play that. And I don't think it will even break out to the upside, because with earnings only 1 week left, I mean, it can depend on Amazon, other technology names to see how this one moves. But I have seen Roku has a mind of its own. It just kind of does its own thing. So yes, you can get some clues from the rest of the market, but Roku moves on its own. So for me to trade this name, I would just look for dip buys and just play the bounces on this name, because it will probably remain elevated because of the earnings coming up, and it's just a good looking chart on the higher time frame. Okay, yes, we have some chop here, but then the whole market was choppy the past week, so you can't really blame Roku for that. Okay, moving on to Tesla. Let's look at the daily chart first. Earnings came out, did not really disappoint, but it just did not move that much either, right? So it is what it is, but it's a good name, I think, in terms of trading, because it gives a good good daily range to trade, and it moves a lot, so that's just nice. Looking at the daily chart here, it is holding the 50 SMA nicely, right? So it held the 50 SMA right here, and now it is holding the 50 SMA so far, right? We have this bottom wick that it made on Friday, where it moved below the 50 SMA and then it moved back up and closed above. Still below the previous day's lows, but bottom wick, and people bought this name on the weakness. Okay, it is above this triangle as well, right, which a lot of people were watching. So you can say that it kind of back tested that as well here and closed above. Now if I were to go long, I would take a long entry above the high of this bottom this Friday's bar, and then use my 406 or even support level below that, let's say 391, right, as a stop loss, and just kind of see how this moves. Or if you want to just wait for some more time, few more days, if you want to swing it and see if it starts breaking this trend line here and starts getting some price acceptance in this region here between 424 and 440, that would be a nice sign that we have found some bottom, some buyers, and we can kind of start moving back towards the upside, where this region has been a very stiff resistance, right, between 455 and 460. Every time Tesla trades there, it sells off, right? It sells off every time it trades there. So once we are above that, definitely this can test the all-time highs, but we have some time before it does that. Okay. Alright guys, thank you for tuning in, and like always, if you have any questions, comments or feedback, please don't hold back, and we'd be happy to answer. Thank you.